What's happening, people? We are on here today for another wrestling rant. And oh yeah, there's a lot to talk about. This got to be broken up into two parts this time because we got to talk about last week's Monday Night Raw, NXT. We also got to talk about Dynamite, SmackDown, the pay-per-view Bad Blood. That's going to be his own video because, yeah, there's a lot to talk about in that one. And of course, we got to round out with Collision because I managed to watch some of that too. So let's get started with Raw. Seth freaking Rollins is back. He came back, put a big stomp on Bronson Reed after the ring break. I mean, the ring break spot is cool and all, but you know, you saw it coming a mile away with those big guys with Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman. But when Seth came back, gave him a stomp, and Braun Strowman won the match, I was like, okay, cool. I like that Seth is back. I like Seth. I've always liked Seth. Everything else before that was okay. You know, it wasn't terrible. Everyone was just getting ready for Bad Blood. Gunther and Sammy. I like the fact that that Gunther just leveled him. Was like, no, and level Sammy, and that's always fun to watch. Jay came out, gave his emotional response to him winning the IC title, which, hey man, when you've been at something for that long and you finally do it, you know, get recognition on your own, yeah, it feels some type of way. So I can understand him getting emotional about it. So yeah, I'm with that all the way. And you know, the Rhea, Dom and Liv thing was happening. So you know, that was what it was, along with Priest and Finn Balor. So that too. Next we got, but yeah, the big takeaway from Raw: Seth is back. Seth Rollins is back in the fray. Next, we got NXT, in which they were in Chicago, and CM Punk was the special guest referee, and Trick Williams is the NXT champ again. So Trick Williams won. NXT, it wasn't bad. It wasn't that bad this week. I mean, you know, besides the talking and stuff, once they started talking, but I felt that Ethan Page and Trick had a good match. They had a pretty good match, and CM Punk being there, he brought the star power, of course, because he's a much bigger name than those guys. But he also, you know, his interference was minimal, and so it wasn't too much of him, which was good. So let build the younger stars up. So I did appreciate that. Now that was a big takeaway from NXT, is that Trick is the champ, and it was a decent show for the most part. Then we move on to Dynamite. AEW Dynamite. What to say about Dynamite this time? Other than the fact that Ricochet and Will Ospreay had a flippy match in which Ricochet looked visibly exhausted. I've never seen him look that tired before. I think it's because of how light the AEW schedule is. He's not having to do house shows 3-4 nights a week. So he just worked one day a week. So he can take off the rest. So I seriously think like, whoa, I done got somewhat out of shape here to be doing all this stuff. Now he can still do it, but for him to be so winded, I'm like, hey, no, he's generally tired. And then of course they did their little goofy spots that they flip and land like they're Spider-Man. The finish of that match, one of the worst things I've ever seen. Literally one of the worst things I've ever seen. How do you count both of them? In that situation, you don't count anybody. You don't count anyone. You count them both out, so it's a draw? What does that mean? What does that even mean? And then Takeshita came out, just beat them both up. I'm like, just awful. The Mariah May stuff, I'm like, that's cringy. It was just so cringy. I'm like, good grief. Back to the utter nonsense that was on Dynamite. The fact that after that nonsensical finish, you had a promo in the back with Mercedes, which is just cringy as all get out. Oh, it's just awful. Only to come back from that to have the Young Bucks. Wow. I mean, wow. Then Jericho, I'm like, they had the worst three imaginable all together. I was like, somebody's got to be joking right now. Whoever is planning this out, put three known people, groups, whatever you want to call them, to make sure that people tune away from the channel. Mercedes, the Bucks, and Jericho all so close together. Wow. I guess they were looking for the big ratings drop to happen just in 1 or 2 segments versus the whole program. Because, oh my goodness gracious. Then, that wasn't even it. End of the shenanigans. You got Jack Perry coming out in his murder truck, I guess that's what we want to call it, because he had blood on the bumper. I'm like, what is this? He bails out the truck like he's some tough guy when you're all of 5'2", and you get out the truck and you leave the lights on. First of all, that's not tough. That's just irresponsible. You got a car, you leave the light, you leave the lights running in your truck, so when you go back in there to try to start it up, it dies. What are you doing here? That's just the most irresponsible thing I've ever seen. And oh my, I was angry at that as an adult, okay, as a full-fledged parent and a full-fledged adult. That was irresponsible, leaving the lights on in your car. What do you think this is? Then after that nonsense, we got MVP cutting the promo, and guess who shows up? Shelton Benjamin. Which, I've always been a Shelton fan. I just think they needed to help, I think that we need to help him with his promos and let him, work on those more, because Shelton was and is a phenomenal athlete. Oh my goodness, Shelton's phenomenal. And him going to AEW, I get it. Hey man, cash out. Okay, I'm all for you getting your money. Cash out. Work a lighter schedule, cash out. Okay? But Shelton is much bigger than those guys. Just imagine how it's going to look when Bobby Lashley comes over there. All of those dudes are going to be bouncing off of him. All of them will be bouncing off of him. The only one who is comfortable in size is Big Bill and maybe Moxley. And Moxley, but whatever. This whole Moxley thing, that's how Dynamite ended with Moxley. Right, so let's talk about him real quick. Whatever shtick he's doing needs to end, because it's a bad movie that no one's ever seen. I don't know what he's doing. I don't think he knows what he's doing. The Blackpool Combat Club, the whatever club they're in, like, isn't that in England? Like, Mox is not from England. Why is he a member? I don't understand that at all. I don't get it. So yeah, that's how Dynamite ended, with utter nonsense of Moxley. It was just the worst. Now let's move on to Friday Night SmackDown. When we get on SmackDown, big old takeaway from that was that match, it was super great. The ladder match between the Tongans, DIY, and the Street Profits. I was hoping the Profits would win, honestly. I was hoping they would win. They didn't. The Tongans won. The match was good. Botchaloa, he's starting to become Tongaloa again. And he's losing the botch part because he hadn't botched in a couple weeks, which is good for him. I think because he realized, like, hey, it's serious now. Go tighten up. So he had made a mistake that I've seen. SmackDown, the program was all in all was fine. Tiffany kept threatening, she came like she was gonna cash in on Nia. She didn't, of course. But I like when they choke her up, like, hey, what you think this is? I was like, all right, there's that interesting dynamic. We all know Tiffany's going to cash in on her. It's just a matter of when. The SmackDown, for the most part, I forget most of those matches. I mean, it's nothing too great out there. I was just really interested in the Bloodline stuff and how the match was going to go over. And I was worried about Tama Tonga being on top of, Tonga Loa being on top of the, being on the last step of the last, like, he's gonna fall. I was like, he is gonna fall. He didn't. Thank goodness he didn't fall. So that was that. I definitely have a special shout out to Montez, man, because him, oh my goodness, man, him and his partner, they both did their dives over the rope, and whew, it was crazy. And Montez's Superman pose over the rope, that was incredible. That was incredible, man. I was like, once Montez turns heel, I think he gonna shoot to the top, because he can talk too. Montez can talk. So once they give him a chance to get on the mic, I think it's gonna be money. So yeah, that was the big takeaway from SmackDown. So all in all, SmackDown, not a bad show. Now let's get on with Collision. Yeah. So we got Chris Statlander. She had her match. Squash match, needed to be. She won. Right? We got Mercedes coming out with her bodyguard. I would much rather see the bodyguard and Statlander fight versus Mercedes, because Mercedes is like a foot short in both of them, and she's frail looking compared to those women. That's gonna be that'll be a better matchup, those two versus Mercedes. Then we got a hologram and the ilk hitting all their flips and stuff. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Wheeler Yuta, I'm like, he's just there. I'm like, I don't know. The booking on Collision, is it supposed to be consistent with Dynamite to make sure they have congruent storylines? Because I don't know, man. They're just throwing stuff to the wind here and hoping that it works, and it's not. It really isn't. And then after the hologram stuff, you know what? You know, truth be told, I was out. I was done. And I was done, and I just fast forwarded the rest of it until I got to the end, where I saw Darby Allin. Him and his match. You know, it was a competitive match, which he did win. But at the end, he issued an open challenge for somebody to come make a name off of Darby Allin. I don't know if he understands what he's saying. Come make a name off of Darby Allin. Who's gonna make a name off Darby Allin? Like, what wrestler back there would have made a name off of you? Darby has never been a household name. People can't make a name off of you if you don't have a name. It doesn't make sense. He did the equivalent of someone like Buff Bagwell saying, make a name off of me. Really, who are you? You're in the mid-card on a show. You're the mid-card on the show. Like, oh, hey, that's who that guy is. You don't have no one can make a name off of you, because your name isn't big enough to be big enough on its own. Like, what are you talking about? And then he gets yoked about someone 3 times his size, and of course that way he can get thrown around. I think he just wants someone to break him in half. And I was talking to my brother the other day about it. I'm like, imagine when Bobby Lashley comes over there and he has and he starts doing his thing. Is Darby Allin going to be paired with him? Are they going to have Darby Allin bouncing off of Bobby Lashley? And Bobby Lashley just throwing him around like he's a bag of ice. Okay, slamming him all over the place, throwing him through everything because, yeah, I want you to cripple me. I think he has a wish to be crippled because he's doing these stupid bumps for no reason, for no purpose. No purpose whatsoever. He's getting the same amount of money, unless Tony has a special, like, hey, if you do this bump, I'll throw you extra, 10, 20, 30 grand or whatever. I don't know. I don't know what that arrangement is. I hope it's like that because he's doing a lot of dumb stuff. So he got yoked up, and next thing you know, he's like, yep, he's going to get tossed around like a rag doll because that's what he prefers. The end. The end. That was Collision. So all in all, prior to the pay-per-view Bad Blood, like I said, I'm gonna do a separate video on that one. But that was a weekend wrestling. All in all, we had the good, the bad, the ridiculous, the funny, and the just downright what in wrestling. So let me know what your highlights were for the weeks and what you saw. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure, let's keep growing our channels, y'all. I'm thrilled. Keep the engagement going, man. I love interacting with everybody. So let's keep it going, y'all. We're doing such a great job. Let's continue. And yeah, let's keep it going. Let me know what you like, didn't like, and everything in between. Talk to you soon.